2 of Dispersing the Cloud. Trying to go to my YouTube page here and see if maybe it is live. No clue. It says starting live. Let me do like a quick search. All right, we are live. I'm 20 seconds in apparently. All right, let's do a quick little check here. Let me sign out. If we're live, then that means that I should be able to watch myself via the Ingibernet. Anyway, this is episode 42 of Dispersing the Cloud. I am reviewing last week, and we're going to talk about the book Waking the Dead. I'm using Sling Studio. For those of you who don't know what that is this guy right here. And I'm using my iPad to switch between... And apparently Ryan's playing video games in the next room. Visiting him right now. Hey, I'm live streaming. I think I am. I don't even know, bro. I don't even know anymore. I don't know what's going on. I'm trying to get into my creator studio so I can see if this is actually happening right now. Live streaming. Offline. It says we're offline, dude. This thing ain't working. Whatever. I'm just going to do a practice run if it ain't working. So anyway, Dispersing the Cloud. Let me run through what last week brought, and then I'll go through Waking the Dead. So last week I was on a little bit of a road trip, did some recording, got to wrestle with Missouri Baptist. That was fun. You're fine, dude. I have no clue if this is working or not, by the way. It says I'm live right now. It says I'm live for 2 minutes. I have no clue. Hey, go online and look up Dispersing the Cloud on see if you get your phone. And so that's what I did last week. I had a couple production gigs set up as well. Right now I'm really waiting on like a freaking million invoices, it feels like. And part of this week was upping my game with production value, upping my game with all the podcasts that I want to do. I want to say the feel of last week, or the process of last week, was during this read of Waking the Dead, was trying to be more aware of the unseen battles that happen around us. Waking the Dead's a pretty awesome book. If you guys don't know who John Eldridge is, you should definitely check that out. But the book kind of revolves around this theme of spiritual warfare, or there being two parts of both physical and spiritual beings. I think it's pretty... even if you're not a firm believer in Christ or a firm believer in the Bible, I think there's something to be said about understanding that there is something more than what is here. And yeah, and talking about that. So there's a couple different things that John Eldredge says that are written into our story. One of those things, and it's actually the greatest theme, like every theme from the greatest movies that we have is actually stolen from this biblical theme. We all steal our big stories from the Bible. So the first part of that theme is things are not what they seem. That theme rings true in the Bible. It says, hey, things are not physical. They are not what they seem. They're actually spiritual. And I'm going to relate all this to The Matrix because it's one of the biggest movies ever. And Lord of the Rings, too. They share these same things. It's very interesting on why they're so popular. John Eldridge would make the argument because these are inherent truths that are written on our hearts that we already know to be true. So things are not as they seem is the first one. The second one is there's a battle raging, right? So in The Matrix, things are not what they seem. You're actually living in the Matrix, and there's a battle between robots and machines, right? Lord of the Rings, things are not what they seem. There's actually a battle that is much larger than yourself. And then the third thing that he says rings true in all of us is that we play a very crucial role in that battle. He said part of the reason that all these movies are so popular with men and women is because we hear the story and something builds up inside of us because we know that it's true. It's this inherent truth that we just know that is written on our soul. Super, super interesting. So let me go through the quotes of the book, and I'll just bust through them like I always do. The heart is the focus for your attacks. So in this book, he talks a lot about the heart and our hearts and how to guard those hearts and why our hearts are attacked in certain spots over and over again. It's because that's where our greatest strengths are. The heart is the heart is more time Bible. Oh, the heart is actually mentioned more times in the Bible than anything else. It's mentioned more than prayer. It's mentioned more than money. It's mentioned more than acts of servitude. It's mentioned more than worship. The heart is actually mentioned the most in the Bible, but yet we don't talk about it a lot, which is, I thought that was pretty interesting. This was just a really cool quote. Proverbs says, "As a man thinks in his heart, so he is." And that actually predates Sigmund Freud by 2,000 years, which is pretty interesting. The heart is the holding place of true beliefs. I always say this, that faith, people talk about faith all the time, and our faith is, I say your actions are an evidence of what your faith truly is. You say, oh yeah, I have faith in God. Cool. But if you are hesitating to do something that you feel like God's calling you to do, then you don't have a lot of faith. I believe faith is a reflection of what you truly believe. So you meet someone who has like great faith, like, oh man, you're doing this, you're doing that, like that's a big risk. Yeah, they actually truly believe what they're talking about, which I think is pretty telling for people who are in ministry and do other stuff. It's very frustrating not knowing that if I'm live or not, because I know that I'm going to have to do this again if I'm not, and it's kind of make me doing it like half-a, excuse my language, but I'm kind of just like busting through it because I want to find out if it's live or not. And again, I'm on my live dashboard and it still says offline, so I'm just assuming that I'm not, and I'm I'm going to be doing this twice. Courage in Latin. Ooh, this is really cool. Courage in Latin means core, and the root word of that, is actually heart. And so when we talk about courage, we're actually talking about our hearts, which again is just going on with this theme of your heart, your heart, your heart, your heart. We are created by love to live in love for the sake of love. That's Gerald May. I just thought that was a great quote from the book. Telling you should live from your heart is like telling you should breathe. This is really interesting. He makes the argument, and it's actually a frustrating point for him. He says, man, I'm really trying to get you guys to live by your heart, especially Christians. They always throw out the saying like, oh, my heart is wicked. My heart is dirty. Well, if you believe the Bible, then you believe that Christ gave you a new heart, and your heart is actually now good. And so he's trying to encourage you to live from your heart. One of the writer of Proverbs, Solomon, and the song and a lot of the Psalms came from Solomon as well. Like, he was known for having a wise and discerning heart, not a mind. So when we talk about living from our hearts, John Eldridge would make the argument that it is important as breathing. The word heart in the Bible is translated as me. That's pretty interesting. The word heart is actually defined in the Bible as me, meaning like, oh, that's what my heart feels. No, that's me. Like, it is the essence of you. It would be like a soul. Your soul is your heart. And I think that's a better translation, or the way that we would understand it, that makes a little bit more sense to me. This is just another phrase that I talked about. I will remove your heart of stone. I will renew your heart and give you a heart of flesh. I think he's basically referring to giving you. Have you ever watched a movie and seen somebody going through something that you have never experienced, but yet you feel empathy or sympathy towards them? I think that's the heart of flesh that he's talking about. That ability to see someone and experience what they're going through and to feel those things. You have a new heart. Your heart is good. Again, this is all just reaffirming things about your heart. Of course, your heart would be the object of the great battle. It is your most precious possession. And so the whole book is talking about this battle that we have going on, that is between our hearts and the enemy, right? Like we talked about this, whether you believe in God or not, there is no doubt that there is good and evil in this universe. And it would seem that they would be at war or at conflict with each other. Now, there are some religions, like Eastern religions, like yin and yang, they would say they have to coexist. But I think that it's pretty recognizable that you see good and evil in the world, and they clash a lot of the time. And so when we're talking about the things that happen to us, it only makes sense that those things happen to the deep parts of our heart, because that is the good part of us. And the hurt is, or the attacks are coming at the most precious possession that we have, which is our heart. So of course your heart would be all the stories that we tell, borrow the power of the story of the Bible. We just talked about that a little bit earlier. It's not prideful to embrace the truth that you bear God's image. This was really interesting. He talks about in the book of God giving you a name, and God telling you that you're powerful, and God empowering you to be, we talked about it last week in Wild at Heart, to be a man, to be strong, and all these different things. It's not prideful to consider yourself God's image, or to consider yourself awesome or powerful. He said, the author of this book said that his relationship with God, he felt like God was calling him William Wallace. And that's a pretty bold statement. Like, William Wallace was freaking a savage, right? And so and he doesn't feel like that. He's like, I don't feel like a savage, so I felt like I was making it up. And he said, no, you are a savage. You are my Wallace, which is really, really cool. The next thing he talks about in the book is the 4 streams of these different 4 disciplines, or 4 different streams or avenues of ways that our heart is battled against, right? The first one is discipline. You can understand that as like walking with God. The second one is receiving God's intimate counsel, or counseling, right? The second one is the third one is healing. You can think about that one as like a deep resolution or restoration. And then the fourth one is warfare, which you could translate as like spiritual warfare. And I think, again, this is probably more of a topic for people who are Christ followers, who believe in the Bible. But I think it actually reigns true. Like, if you think about karma, if you think about good and evil, as bad things happen to you, you can't always see it as bad things are happening to me. Sometimes you have to see it as, this is the universe attacking me, and sometimes we have to fight back. There's a lot of very prominent businessmen and very successful businessmen who would say you can't control the things that happen to you, but you can control how you react. The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. Marcus Aurelius talked a lot about stoicism and things happening to him, and then how he reacted to those things and attacking those things and not shying away from obstacles. Power of Broke, Damian John talks a little bit about obstacles being exactly what you want. I talked about last week on my Snapchat, like resistance. I need resistance. It lets me know that I'm going in the correct direction. I faced some more resistance last week and the week before, and it just jazzes me up because I know that resistance means that I'm getting attacked, and that means that I'm on the battlefield. I'm in the right spot. If everything's chill around me and I got no problems, it means I lost my way. I'm not on the battlefield right now. I'm not pursuing a higher purpose, right? If you're not pursuing a dangerous quest in your life, but then you don't need a guide. You don't need God. If you're just here to, hey, I just want to relax. I just want to live a life, like just do my own thing. Then I don't. Yeah, you're right. I don't see you needing God. That makes sense to me. People are like, I don't need God. I completely understand. If you're not on, if you're not going through a dangerous quest, you wouldn't. Although your heart is truly good, it still needs to be trained up to be wise. He actually quotes Lord of the Rings, and he says, this. He's referring to this king. He says, this king has a good heart, but he doesn't have a wise heart. He doesn't have a trained up heart. It's even though we have good hearts, we still have to train them. We have to train them to be wise. We have to train them to be discerning. It's just a necessary thing. We have to do those things. All right, wisdom is essential, and story of the Paul. Wisdom is essential and ineffective. Oh, inefficient. Story of the Paul. The Pal? Am I saying the Pal? Dang it. I don't even know what that story is. I'm going to have to reread the book again. Let's see if it comes back to me. Foolishness is the reason above all else. Foolishness is the reason above all else. Foolishness is reason above all else. Those two notes are blanking on me. I don't even know, guys. I'm failing you miserably. I took pretty good notes on this one, too. I'm going to come back to both of those. Oh, this was recent, in the last day. God of angel armies. It refers to God as the God of angel armies, which is pretty interesting because we picture God and we picture Jesus as like these meek creatures. But he's like, no, dude, he's like a freaking BA general. Like, he's like the baddest dude alive. He's the God of angel armies. Like, picture, like, if there are angels, okay, cool, there's angels. And then there's armies in the angels, okay, the baddest of the bad. And then he's the leader. He's the general of those armies. You're like, oh, dang, that fool's bad. That's the God he's talking about, which kind of gives you a different perspective on God, which is kind of cool. This is probably the best quote. I'm going to save it for the end. Real quick, you need a team. They say life group. They say individuals in your life that can speak into your life. If you don't have people in your life who speak into it, it's going to be very difficult to get through some of these battles that you have to go through, right? Especially those of us who do follow Christ and understand this a little bit more and see these battles right up in our face. If you don't have a core group that's actually helping you through this, it's going to be very, very difficult for you to get through a lot of it. These are just a couple good quotes. Be kind to everyone, because everyone you know is going through a great battle. Community cannot survive without solitude. This is extremely important. I think it's good to go away by yourself and not get everything you think you need from the community around you. It's good to disappear into the woods for a couple weeks and just be alone with God and just find you, because when you go to others for your validation, you end up wanting because they cannot provide what you're looking for. Next week, I got a trip to Fresno, podcast, flower stuff is going, got some meetings with some other companies to partner with the flower company, maybe have an opportunity to get my music degree. Operation Double Down is coming in hot, and a lot of stuff coming down the pipeline. Sling Studio is one of the biggest ones that I'm right now, hopefully I'm achieving. We'll find out if this was live on YouTube or if I have to do it again. I actually would prefer to do it again and know that I'm doing it. That way I could do a little better job. This is one of my shorter live broadcast. But I'm going to leave you guys with this. How would you live differently if you truly believed that your heart was the treasure of the kingdom? You will need your whole heart for what is coming next. Above all else, you must care for your heart. That's all I got for you guys right now. This was an awesome week, an awesome read. If you have not read Waking the Dead by John Eldridge and you go to church, you need to read it because it'll really help you understand why you're going to church and what you're actually what you're involved in. I'm gonna try to stop this video and see if it's on YouTube. Matter of fact, while I'm online with you guys, what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna sign out.
Literally like 12, 13 times.
I'm gonna do this and see if we can see it. Dispersing.